Hi, and welcome to FAB Entrepreneurs, episode 8, the evolution and failure of your FAB business. We thought this would be a really fun topic because businesses grow and change over time, and how you look at that can really determine how successful you ultimately are. Rachel, I know you started off in a completely different industry, didn't you?
Yeah, I feel like I've changed industries several times. I've gone back to industries as well when I needed money. Yeah, basically, I always knew that I wanted to be a business owner. I, as you do, pictured it completely differently, thought I would do it when I was older and my kids were in school, when I had loads of experience under my belt. But then it turned out that actually I couldn't wait that long and I wanted to get ahead and do it. And that has actually turned out for the better, I think. I'm pretty pleased with how it's going. So this is, I think, my fourth. Fab Entrepreneurs is my fifth business. I think that's the nature of being an entrepreneur, is that you get lots of ideas, you try things, and also you might not have the skills that you need when you first come up with an idea to actually follow it through and make it a successful business. So I thought maybe we could both just talk a little bit about what businesses we have attempted and where we started and where everything's gone. So let's dive right into that. Kristin, do you want to go ahead? We'll do probably easier just to go through every business you've done and then through every business I've done.
Well, now that we're talking about it, actually, now that I'm trying to think back to my first business, I think I was in college, and I say I think because I can't remember if I did anything in high school or not, but in college, I would order things wholesale and resell them on Amazon or on eBay for a profit. And I did that for like a year or two.
I did think you were very good at eBay selling, because I noticed when we were both living in New York that you were often like mailing off packages to various random people. And I was like, what's that? And you're like, oh, some jeans. I'm like, wow, that is very, very clever that you're selling your clothes on eBay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, now I just sell things that I don't want, so it's a little different. But yeah, no, I think I met someone in, my roommate's sister did that. And she was telling me all about it. And I was like, that's a really great idea. I'm going to do that too. Because you can buy things wholesale, obviously, for a significant price reduction. Of course, the catch is that eBay is typically a discount sort of reseller. So you may or may not be making as much money. It just sort of depends. But you know what? So this is not something that I've done, but I was just reading an article about people who buy stuff on Amazon and then resell it on eBay. And you can even just like put in the buyer's address, and so Amazon will ship it to them. You don't actually have to do anything.
Oh, wow.
The catch, of course, is that it comes with your Amazon packaging and invoice, and they can see that you didn't pay as much money as they did. And
Oh yeah, that seems like not a great service if it's
no,
so transparent.
it's not a great service, but it's actually a really interesting idea. And if someone could streamline that, then that would be an interesting business idea. But
Yeah, and I think sometimes for purchases, you just genuinely want that item and you don't really care how you procure it and how that person procures it.
right, because if you just go on eBay and you're like, I'll just buy this thing, then you're clearly not
Mhm.
shopping around, are you?
Yeah.
You don't even check Amazon prices.
Anyway, we digress.
Sorry.
Um,
So
tell me what happened, what made you move on to your next business and what it was.
yeah, so I kind of just stopped because I stopped doing that because I had a problem with the people that I was buying from, the wholesaler, and I could have probably called them and straightened everything out. And there was also like a down period on eBay where people weren't buying. And again, I probably should have just waited that out because the markets, you're not always going to have sales, of course. But instead I was like, I'll just go become a server and at this restaurant. And so I just kind of forgot about it, actually. And then I started, what did I do in Chicago? Maybe I didn't do anything. We'll skip that part. And then I started a food blog. I was going to be a food blogger. I was the food blogger. And that the first food blog that I did, because I have had more than one, was all about nutrition, actually, and more of an educational thing. I ended up several years later having a different one that was more recipes and also more focused on creating skincare products and lotions and stuff. And so I had recipes up for that.
I remember you making your own deodorant.
Yes, I made my own deodorant too. I don't anymore, but I still don't use like regular deodorant. I use this like rock salt stuff. Anyway, yeah, and I don't make my own skincare anymore, but I'm so picky about like my lotions and like what goes onto my body. Like it's kind of crazy, but it all stems from that because I did have a blog that was all about research and like what you should and shouldn't put on or in your body. And then I developed my own stuff. And then actually in between the two food blogs, I had a sewing blog that I monetized, and I still really want to do that. I just don't have the time for that anymore. And so it's kind of been on hiatus. And then I had a knitting course, a site for my courses, which is still up because I actually had some companies buy a few of my courses. So you can still find them. And now I sell patterns, and I'm actually now, so I guess I currently sell patterns, and now I'm actually developing 2 new business ideas that I will talk more about when they happen. Oh, and obviously this. So yeah, it just grows and changes over the years. Well, and so before we talk about that, actually, Rachel, what's your rundown of business?
Okay, so I just remembered like a 6th or a 7th. I can't remember what my original number was. So my first business, I'm going to say like 13, and I used to paint faces. I was a face painter at children's parties and school fetes and the like. My mother bought me a set of face paints. That was her investment in me. And then I got to keep the profit painting faces. So I did that for a little bit. Didn't make a ton of money doing it, but it was an interesting pastime when all of my friends were playing or online. I was doing that. And then I started my first online business when I was 15. So I made jewelry. I've always been super interested in crafting and making and beautiful things. And so I made jewelry, and I decided that I was going to sell it online. And my brother, who was very tech nerdy, made me a website. And I sold one piece, I think it was a pair of earrings, to a woman in the UK. I was currently living in France at the time. I don't think it was my mum's friend, because this woman had a name that we didn't know, and I'm pretty sure my mum wouldn't do that to me. And I packaged it up, and I went to La Poste, which is the French very slow postal service, and I sent it off. And I got the online payment, and that was very exciting. But I did not pursue it, and I don't remember why. I carried on making jewelry, but I just made it for fun. I didn't. I had the domain for a while, and I used it on my CV and things like that when I was looking for jobs. But I didn't. I don't know why I didn't try and like make more of it. I think because I was in school and I was studying really hard, and I didn't. I think, well, obviously the main reason is I didn't have the business skills to do it. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
I knew how to make the product, but I didn't know how to market the product, how to sell the product, how to package it. And so I just wasn't equipped to make a successful business at that point. So then I went back and continued kind of honing my crafting skills, and studied art and just learned how to draw and things like that. And then I'm trying to think what was my next business after that. Okay, so then I had a freelance business next. So that was probably about 6 years later. After I'd worked in an office during the day, I got freelance work in the evening, and I ran that kind of like a business. I didn't think of it as a business at the time, but looking back, it was a business. I obviously invoiced being freelance, and I paid my taxes on that, and I had a website portfolio, things like that. But I definitely didn't market myself. I applied to things online looking for freelance designers, and I also found jobs through contacts in the industry, but I didn't market myself. Like, my website was just a portfolio link for people who got my application to see my work. Then I fast forward another 5 years, and I was my first son was about 1.5, and I was getting kind of bored, and I wanted to make some money, and I was super into sewing. I had a sewing blog which I didn't monetize. It was for fun. I had an intention of eventually monetizing it, but then it kind of dropped by the wayside. And I was so crazy in love with sewing and pattern making that I wanted to start a bridal wear line. Not, I guess that's the wrong way of putting it, not a line that I would get into boutiques, but I wanted to be a bridal wear designer and have clients that I would create dresses for. We'll come back to why that didn't work. I'll just do the run through.
Yeah.
And then after that, fast forward another 2 years, I wanted to do bridal accessories. We'll get into why I thought accessories would be easier. I wanted to make veils. I took a veil making course on Craftsy, I think. A really good course, excellent course. And I also learned how to make silk flower hair pieces. I took another very short course. I'm talking a couple hour course online from an Australian lady. I can put the links in the show notes. And I didn't follow through on that one either. And then I started Stain and Reverie, my full service textile design studio. And that I really treated as a business from the beginning. I signed myself up for a trade show selling event before I even had a collection. And I was completely motivated, on the ball, doing all the businessy things that I'd never done, having business cards and everything like that. And it was no, this is the time, this is the one time I'm going to actually not just fantasize about it, not just create an amazing product. I'm actually going to follow through with all the businessy stuff that I didn't know about, but also didn't care about, but realized that you need.
What do you think is the key then to wanting to follow through and to having a successful business?
I think you've got to have the business skills. I think you've got to know how to talk to people. I think you've got to be confident in marketing yourself. I think you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to take loads of risks. You've got to really want to succeed, because if you don't have the business skill, you have to use your time when you could be, watching TV. You have to spend that time learning a business skill that's quite boring, but necessary. So I could have learnt all of those things for my bridal businesses, but I didn't. I shan't call them businesses, because as far as I had a trend of creating really good products and beautiful websites, but nothing else.
Yeah, while I made money at these things, they weren't super successful, and I still had day jobs, whether that was full-time or part-time.
Let me jump in, because I have an amendment. So I think the most important thing for me, and possibly for you guys, is to know who your client is and where to find them, and to go after them. I think it's all about your customer. And I think I didn't know who my customer was, and I didn't know how to reach them. And that's where it kind of failed, because I could never make a sale, because I I didn't know who I was trying to sell to.
I think that's a really important point, but
Thank you.
well, you definitely need your client, because that was one of the things that I struggled with for a few different things. Was like, I have this really great product, but where is my person? But also, if you don't have those, do you think, I guess this is why the but came in, but do you think the business skills help you find that, person? Do you think they're separate, or do you think they go together?
Yes, I think when we talk about business skills, we're talking about communication, we're talking about branding. You've got to know, you learn who your customer is when you start looking into your branding. And I think just learning about business and researching, and this is like, there's a lot of, conversation about whether a lot of these coaching businesses are actually just like businesses trying to make money and they're not going to teach you anything, yada, yada, yada. I'm, have my own opinions on it, back and forth. But I think there are so many skills that you need to learn so that you can be successful. And I think that's the difference is I started looking at the business marketing side of things. I even read really dry marketing textbooks that my brother left for me because he had a marketing degree. And when he moved out, I was like, oh, I'll take those books. And I read them, and I learned there was a whole strategy to selling to people that I just didn't know existed. I thought it was just like, well, have a great product and then it'll sell.
Yeah, I took a year-long course on marketing while I was in New York, and it was amazing and kind of changed my whole life and perspective. And it's interesting because I think a lot of it can be common sense, and I think a lot of it, that's why I think people ignore marketing, because like, of course you want to connect with your ideal client, and of course, you know what I'm saying, like, I feel like a lot of it can seem to be common sense, but it's not necessarily, and how you apply it is what makes all the difference.
Yeah, so talking about your ideal client and going back to that, the main reason that I didn't get anywhere with my first potentially serious business, which was bridal wear, was that I was surrounded by people who, like me, were looking for cheap wedding dresses. And so I really let that demotivate me and influence my confidence in whether I could succeed, because I thought, well, if everyone around me is looking for cheap, and then all of these high street retailers are also starting to jump on board the bridal train, then I'm never going to be able to sell anything, because all anyone wants is cheap, and they think that having a seamstress make a dress is cheaper than buying it in a store when it's come from China, and that just isn't true. I really let that stop me. So it was like part mindset, but also like lack of knowledge about how you have to find your dream customer. You have to know who your dream customer is, and you have to reach them and talk to them and find them. And if I'd known those things, I'm pretty sure that even living in a fairly small town, that I could have found those people within reasonable distance, if I knew that was what I was looking for. Whereas I just looked at the people around me and I was like, oh, 10 out of 10 people near me think that the most important thing when buying a wedding dress is that it's cheap. Therefore, 100% of the world wants cheap.
I actually totally agree with this point. I think it's super frustrating because there's a lot of business advice out there that's like, oh yeah, you need to create your thing, and then look to your friends and family because they're going to be your first customer. Someone you know is going to be your first customer. But what if they're not? Actually, everything that I have created and done, I don't have any friends or family that are interested. And in fact, a lot of times when I listen to friends and family, like the reason that I kind of stopped doing the food stuff was because everyone I know would just rather go eat like fast food or hamburgers or something, and they don't care about their health. Or maybe they do, but not enough to like, actually like make changes. And I certainly don't know I know people now who knit and who sew, but I didn't before I started. And I can't sell to, again, yeah, I can't sell to friends and family. And so I think that can be frustrating because you really have to, until you find your ideal client and know like where they are and how to reach them, you are going to be surrounded by people who are like, I don't understand why you're doing this. This doesn't
Yeah,
seem like a good
totally.
idea.
I feel like if I now tried to do this business, I would definitely succeed because I had the great product and I had, you know, an unique selling point. And now I know that there are people out there, you just have to find them, and I would know how to talk to them, and I would know how to get them to be interested in me. And I think that's the reason I wasn't ready at the time, and I probably would have wasted a load of money and a load of time had I pursued it, because I didn't know what I was trying to do. I didn't know who I was trying to sell to, and I would not have sold anything, and then I would have been super demotivated and given up, and then probably never wanted to start another business after that. So in a way, like, a lot of these things, like, they happen for a reason. Kristin and I both believe strongly in fate and things happening for a reason, and the universe is guiding us towards a better path. So I do think, like, it wasn't the right time for me to start that particular business, at least, maybe a different kind of business. I felt at the time I knew a lot more about the blogging space, and I probably could have run a successful blog at the time, but definitely not a B2C product-based business, product and service-based business.
Yes, I actually think that's really important, because the mindset piece and believing that things work out for a reason, because when you're not in a good headspace, and you can easily see this, and that's why I love this title of this episode, because businesses evolve and you evolve and things change and grow. But if you don't look at it like that, then you've just failed a bunch of times. And that can also be very demotivating, especially if you don't have a good support group around you. And if you just see it as like another failure. And actually, so like I have two different things in development, and they're both really great ideas, one of which I know nothing about, and I have to rely on other people and their expertise, which is a little scary. And the other one is more something that I can do on my own, and I feel very confident that it's going to be amazing. Hopefully it is. But that is the thing, is like, when I am, you know, in a bad headspace, when I'm not feeling great about myself, I actually was just talking to a friend last week, and I was like, I don't even know if I should pursue this, because I don't want another failure on my hands. And like the next day, I just completely changed my mind. I was like, what was wrong with me? Like, clearly, like, I didn't feel that great. But you know, if you don't feel great all the time, if you're, you know, feeling low a lot, if you don't have that good support group, maybe that fear of failing comes up more than just once a week, or however, you know, that was like the only time that I've ever actually sit in like the last month that I thought this. But like, I've worked on my mindset a lot to get to that place. And if you have that, what if I fail, what if I fail, what if I fail thing going on a lot, you're not going to take risks. You're not going to grow. You might not even do it, because you're
Or
just
you might
not,
do it but not tell anyone about it.
yeah, you won't tell anyone about it. You won't really commit. You won't like do what you need to do on a daily or a weekly basis. You're not gonna, you know, you're not really gonna throw everything that you have behind it, because at the end of the day, if you don't really believe in yourself, then you don't believe in your business idea, even though it's really, you know, even though it may be really, really valid. And actually, I think we talked about this in the first episode. One of the things that I loved about living in New York City, because we both used to live in New York City, that's where we met, is that I realized if you can stick it out and if you believe in yourself, someone will give you money and you can do whatever you want. And the rest of the country, the rest of the world doesn't necessarily have that. But in New York, like, if you have a dream and if you believe in yourself and you can stick it out, you can do it. Probably, I mean, I've heard LA is very similar in that. I'm sure there are other cities that are like that, but
I
that,
think now the online space is like that too. I think
yeah.
if you are really passionate about what you're doing and you do your research, I think you would definitely have every chance of succeeding at what you're doing.
Right, right. And success is obviously really important, but I think you have to also give yourself the time to figure out that space, like if you're in the
Mm-hmm.
online space or not. And then I think you have to give yourself time to like really learn what you're doing, because
Yes.
yes, as you said, you had like a really great product, but that's not enough. If you're
No.
doing it by yourself, that's not enough.
No. And then I also, when I was trying to make my accessories, I also got very bogged down by the idea that it was impossible to make one thing to sell to one person, and that I would never make any money doing that. And that's the rhetoric I was hearing around me as well. Is like, well, if it takes you X amount of hours to make it, and you're going to sell it for this, like you'll never be profitable. And
Mm-hmm.
you can only make money if you make one thing that you can sell to many people, or you make one thing that can be at least sold to different people rather than custom made. And I don't think that's true. I think it's harder to do it that way, but you just have to have your price reflect the fact that this is a one-off piece and that this is handmade or that this is custom, and find the people who care about things being custom and care about things being one-off, and then you can be successful.
Yeah, I was chatting in one of my Facebook groups about one of my new business ideas, because I was looking for guidance, and someone discovered my prices, which are, I don't know, I actually think they're kind of low at this point. I kind of want to raise them, but she was just blown away by how much I charged. And she was like, I don't know anyone that would pay that much money for it. Like, what are you even doing? And I'm like, just because 80 to 90% of the world isn't going to pay this price, does like I'm not like I'm just going to ignore all of those people, and I'm going to go
Mhm.
after that 10 to 20% that has the money, that wants a custom made piece, that sees this and is like, oh, this is a bargain.
Exactly. Yeah, they see the value in what you're doing.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. So going back to the whole doubt and confidence issue, I think while business skills are super important, and we can discuss that a little bit more in just a minute, I really think if your mindset isn't there, that I don't even know if you would bother. And that's the thing, is because if you're listening to this and you do have that doubt, you're like, yeah, I don't think I should bother either.
Yeah, you think, oh, I should play it safe and
Yeah.
not try because I don't want to fail. I don't want everyone on Facebook to see me fail again.
And the thing is that, yeah, I mean, and I do that sometimes too, but luckily it's not like an all day, everyday thing. It's just like a once in a blue moon kind. Oh, we just had a blue moon. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's like a once in a blue moon kind of thing, where I do feel very nervous about what other people are gonna think. But when you start to play into that, that's starting to fail, and then you kind of build up that momentum. And I was actually just talking about this with somebody, like, I think we're all very familiar with this whole spiraling down thing, and then we all have it happen when something bad or potentially bad could happen, and we just kind of like play that game of like, well, but then this could happen, and then this could happen,
Mhm.
and then my whole life is ruined.
Yeah.
And I was just telling someone, like, you can do that the opposite way too. Like, you can do that and spiral up. And I hear so many people tell me, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get my hopes up. And I would rather be surprised than disappointed. And it has been my experience that I am hardly ever disappointed because not only do I expect good things to happen to me, but when you start to expect it, instead of just like, man, I hope this good thing will happen, but it
Mhm.
probably won't. Like when you're like, no, this something really great is going to happen, and you expect it, you look for it and you find it. And as you start to notice all of these really great things, more great things happen.
Definitely.
Because you're looking for it, you're expecting it. And so, but where I'm going with this is, if you expect your business to fail before you even start, you're probably going to have a failed business, and you're probably not even going to be that upset about it, but you're going to take away this whole, well, I never thought I could do it. No one's going to pay for my work. My work probably isn't any good. Like, you're going to take all of this negative stuff away, and that's just not true. It's just not.
I think there's a lot of fear when you start a new business. I think when you've launched a few businesses and maybe one of them works out, is when that fear starts to dissipate. But I know someone who had a good interior design career in London, working for a very respectable interior designer. And then she has started kind of like consulting for friends, doing like jobs here and there. But she is so crippled by her fear of telling people that she is doing a business. She won't even call it a business. She has a really cool Instagram page, but she doesn't tell anyone about it. And she feels completely embarrassed when her friends bring it up and tell new people. And I think this is something that is overlooked. I don't know whether it's like a female driven kind of like fear. Like I don't want to say that that's what it is. I'm not an authority on that, but there's definitely something going on, because I feel like there's a lot of fear for women who are starting a business, and they feel like they're going to be second fiddle to what their husband does, the main breadwinner, or they just feel that like if they bring it up, that people will ridicule them and say like, oh, she doesn't have a business head, she's never run a business, she can't run a business, she doesn't know anything about business. And this fear that you will be judged by people for trying to do something that you aren't qualified to do because you don't have a business degree. And I think that's something you need to immediately get over. No one who like started a business ever thought like, oh, I'm not scared. Like, I think there's always going to be fear there, but it has to be like a healthy fear. Like, this could go really wrong if I don't do this, I'm going to do this. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm so scared, I shouldn't tell anyone. Like, it's okay if that's happening to you right now, but you need to work through it and you need to get out of it so that you can really focus and do the things you need to do to be successful. And you will look back on it and you'll be like, why was I so scared? That was so silly. But in the moment, it feels so strong. It's almost like this like instinct to be like, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to fail. But if you don't try, then you've already failed.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say my biggest fear through the whole process, like, I love building websites. I love telling people what I'm doing. I love all of this. And then I make the first sale, and that's when I get my fear. And I'm like, oh God, what if I'm wrong? What if everything is horrible? What if they hate it? What if? And that's where I always have to catch myself, is the first sale. Because first of all, that doesn't, I mean, I think this is actually, this is obviously mindset, but it's that whole, what are you expecting? I have sold to clients and companies, and I have had negative experiences, but none of them have ever gone into my crazy wild dreams of, someone like berating me or demanding their money back, or something like, where like, I'm going to tell all of my friends how horrible you are. And I'm not saying these things don't happen, but I am saying I don't expect it. And every so often, because I'm in a few business groups, and I actually find it really interesting, because sometimes people will post and they're like, oh yeah, this person just, did this, just went off on me. And I think like you see that, and it's sort of a collective fear, and you kind of feed off of it. And I always follow those posts, because and I read the comments and I see how, cause like, you know, people will offer sympathy and offer advice and offers, you know, say this and blah, blah, blah. And I always follow it because I'm always super curious. And again, I don't want to like blame the person, but eventually they're like, yeah, I knew this would happen. I knew it would happen. And this is why I didn't want to go into business. And this is blah, 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 you know, like, and they just go off and I'm like, you're kind of validating all of this. And not only that, but you're putting that fear in everyone else who reads it. They do need advice. And so they're, you know, but at the same time, that's where that comes from. It's this huge collective fear perhaps that we have as women. And I'm sure some men have this too, just like I'm sure some women don't have it. You know, this is just a general statement. But having that collective fear is that societal fear that this is what we expect to happen is so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
I think one of the main reasons that we wanted to discuss this today is it's exactly what you're talking about, which is that it's a journey and you need to get through it. And not everything is right at the time. You can always go back and you can shelf that idea and come back to it later. Just because one thing doesn't work out doesn't mean you should try another. And you can't just look at people who are successful and think like, oh, that's where I want to be. How do I get there? You have to go through your own journey and you have to learn what it is that you want, what you want to get out of your business, what you want to put out in the world. And you might not get that until you've had maybe 4 or 5 ideas. For everyone, it's going to be different how many ideas you might go through until you get the one where you're like, no, this is the right thing. This hits all of the things that I want to do. And I can see myself doing this.
I think the other really important thing, and again, the reason that I really, really love this evolution / failure is that, again, like it's all about how you look at it. And you have to fail in order to succeed. Yes, you can learn and be successful, but you learn a lot when things don't work out as well. And when I look back at all of the things that I've done, I generally quit or dropped them because either they weren't fun anymore or I wasn't as successful as I wanted. And you can say that I failed, but I don't really think so because I learned so much about a lot of different industries and a lot of different skills. And I was able to take that and apply them to my next business. And so each business that I've had has been more successful than the last. And when I start something new, as I'm about to start something new, then you can look at that and let's say everything goes super well and I just blow up in the next year. People are going to look at that and be like, wow, look at that overnight success. She just popped up on the scene and now within a year she is doing, you know, this much. So one of my, but I'll finish the thought. And I'm not an overnight success. I've been doing this since college. But one of I belong to a group on Facebook called Freedom Hackers, which is run by Kimra Luna. And she's amazing. I'll link her in the show notes on the blog if you're interested in checking her out. She's amazing. And it's actually super interesting because in her first year of this business, she made I want to say it was like close to $1 million in her first year of business. And so because of that, she was like on Forbes and she was on like Time. I don't know if it was like in the magazine or like on the blog, but like, you know, it's still a pretty big deal. And she's done all of the stuff because she made so much money in her first year of business. But because I have worked with her and I know her and she's this really great person, I also know that she, you know, ran another business. She had like a food blog. She ran like this really successful Facebook group and she's really great at recruiting people. She also did this MLM, you know, like the pyramid kind of thing. And I know that she also worked in sales. And so while it's true that, you know, before this for final business that she's still doing now with Freedom Hackers, yeah, she made nearly $1 million in her first year of business. And yeah, she was on welfare right before she started it because she and her husband had hit hard times. But it's not like you can just suddenly decide, I'm going to do this and be successful. So
Yeah.
I think that is the very common misconception, is that your very first thing right out of the gate, if you follow all of the steps, is going to be successful. That would be amazing. But I'm saying, like, it's not usually that easy. Every overnight success story usually comes with 10 years of experience. And so if you don't necessarily succeed, and if it doesn't turn out the way you want, that's great. That's okay. You still learned so much and can move on to the next thing because of that.
Yeah. It's never a waste of time. It's never a waste of resources, because you learned something. You can put that on your CV. You can use that as experience. You will be able to talk about that when like, everything that you do in life and in business is learning skills, and you can apply those later. So never feel that if a business isn't working out and you decide to shelf it, that you wasted X months, weeks, years of your life. Like, you did learn something, and it was useful to you, and it's your journey.
Right. I do get frustrated when people say life is a journey, not a destination, because I totally love, like, destinations and, like, laying on the beach. Like, I'm not going to lie. And so I always have this, like, really horrible vision of, like, but I don't want to be traveling in the airport. I want to get to and so I kind of hate the saying, but it's so true. Like, the only time that we are really living is, like, right now and in this moment. And so you can't, like, it's good to have goals and know where you want to go, but you're always going to be going somewhere, and you're never just going to be done until you're dead.
Yeah.
So
like, we grow continually. And I think you've just got to see the evolution of your business as something that grows with you and that you can learn from, and that it doesn't mean that you failed if it doesn't work out.
Right. I think I've said this a few times now, but I don't really believe in failure. I don't see how anything is a failure, because I always learn something, and I always take that as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about how you look at it, and how you look at it is going to determine how you feel about it, and that's going to, either enrich your life or make it worse. So I think it's good that we share these stories with each other so that we can lift each other up and learn from each other, and see that it's not always like A to B or A to C. I don't know what the expression is. It's not always a straight line, basically.
Right.
So again, as usual, if you have any stories that you would like to share about your journey, the evolution or failure of your business, please do share. We would love to hear from you. We have a Facebook group now, FAB Entrepreneurs. You can find us on Facebook. We would love it if you joined our community, and so we can discuss these things all together. I'm sure you have lots to say, and we would love to hear from you.
Yes. And you can come in and totally share your failures, and I can either, like, commiserate with you or tell you why it's really successful. It just depends on where you are, because sometimes you just need to feel sorry for yourself for a little bit.
Yeah, let's do a post, share a failure.
Yeah.
It can be an entire business that failed, or it can be like a product that you tried to launch that just didn't work for whatever reason. And let's share it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this kind of stuff is, like, so much fun. So yes, check us out on Facebook. We'll have links up below. You can subscribe. If you want the newsletters in your inbox, I'll put the link for that as well. And we also have an Instagram page as well, so you can check us out there. And otherwise, we will see you next week.
Yep. If you want to see us in between, you can also check us out on fabentrepreneurs.com, which is our new website. So please take a look, and we look forward to hearing the story.
Yep. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.